For my diversity field experience, I attended a powwow in Cass Lake. While at the powwow, I had the opportunity to interview a Native American woman to get insight on the powwow and her experience growing up in this culture. Before this experience, I knew very little about the Native American culture. During my time as an undergrad, one professor hounded us with the statistics about Native American well-being. She discussed how they are below the poverty level, they are homeless, many of them are addicted to alcohol, and this population has high rates of mental illness and suicide. And of course, we talked about boarding schools and the intergenerational trauma associated with them. In regards to my powwow experience, I'm going to discuss the powwow rules, different dance styles, different regalia, and the food that I learned about in my time there. After, I will talk about the interview that I had with this lady and the knowledge I gained from this experience. The most important rule at a powwow is to be respectful. Powwows are usually open to the public, so be respectful. You are a guest and invite a guest, but you're still a guest. So in regards to the dancers themselves, it is not okay to touch any person's hair or their regalia, including their feathers, without asking first. Some parts of the regalia are not for touching anyway, so don't be surprised if you are declined. Also, listen to the announcer. They will instruct you on what to do, like when to be quiet, when to stand. They will introduce the drums and tell what dance style is coming next. Lastly, go with the flow if you are participating with the dancers in the arena. You are allowed to participate, but know the proper way to. For instance, dancers enter the arena from the east side because the sun rises there. Dancers walk clockwise in the circle. If a dance is over and your sitting spot is behind you, you must walk clockwise until you reach your spot. Although there are many different dance styles, these are some of the ones that I saw that day. Many people were dancing the traditional since it was a traditional powwow, but some were dancing fancy, chicken, and grass. I learned a lot about their regalia that I didn't know before. Regalia are the dancers' outfits. They are not costumes. The lady I interviewed explained it in these terms. Regalia are not costumes because they represent who we are, not someone we want to be. The regalia first represents the dance style of that person. Then, each person will add their own colors, materials, and flash. Oftentimes, you can tell which tribe or area the dancer is from based on the materials or designs on their regalia. Regalia are chosen by the individuals themselves, although sometimes a person will offer a dancer tobacco and will ask them to participate in a dance. Also, a spiritual advisor, family member, or elder may have a dream about the regalia and dance and ask the person to fulfill the dream. As you can see in the pictures, the first one is a chicken dancer, the one in the middle is a fancy dancer, and the third one on the far right is a jingle dancer. The lady I interviewed told me the story about how the jingle dress came to be. There was once a little girl who was sick, near death. Her father, who was desperate to help, had a vision of a dance that would heal his daughter. During a drum ceremony, the little girl wore a dress lined in rows of silver cones made out of the lids of tobacco cans. The father encouraged the little girl to dance, and as the night wore on, her health improved. It's little details like these that gave me a newfound appreciation for this culture. But over time, powwows have evolved on many different levels, but one in particular that was pointed out to me was the food. There didn't used to be food vendors. It would just be a big feast for all to share during the day. The traditional foods were wild rice, venison, bison, corn soup, and walleye. Now it's more like carnival food. Fry breads, cheese curds, egg rolls, deep fried everything. I found out an interesting fact about the food that I was unaware of. Fry bread was never a traditional Native American food. It was created from the government rations of salt, lard, white flour, and baking sodas and powders. It's more associated with Native Americans now, but it's more of a political food that was created as a means for them to survive. So the lady that I interviewed hung out with me for a good portion of the day. She taught me the key details about the powwow that I just went over, and she also taught me about other cultural aspects that I will discuss next. I'm going to give an overview of respectful mannerisms, disrespectful behaviors, and challenges Native Americans face today. As for respectful mannerisms, she talked about the importance of shaking an elder's hand lightly, not firm. She talked about how it's respectful to bring food to elders at events. The elders had their own stand in the shade that they sat under at the powwow, so it is polite to bring them food so they don't have to go get it themselves. If an elder chooses to get their own food, it is respectful to let them go first in line. This is also true for veterans. Some disrespectful behaviors she discussed within her culture were not caring for elders and children, declining what is offered in someone's home. Even if you politely decline it, that is still seen as rude. It is also rude to make direct eye contact with elders or individuals of authority when in conversation. And lastly, pointing at people is seen as very disrespectful. To better understand the Native American culture, I wanted to understand some challenges that they face daily. One challenge she mentioned was feeling like she's living in two different worlds. She said, "I was born into a specific culture, but I'm trying to survive in the dominant culture that nearly destroyed the culture I was born into." She also mentioned the discrimination she has faced, such as college students telling her she's not a real Indian because she doesn't have a feather in her hair, or people think she knows how to live off the land just because she's Native American. And people think that because she lived on a reservation, she was poor, hungry, miserable, and uneducated. Along with this, chronic health diseases are prevalent in her family, which she attributed to assimilation because the foods the government forced them to ingest were uncommon foreign foods. Lastly, I want to discuss her educational experience while attending school. She mentioned that her school only taught one language, which was German. She would have loved to learn Ojibwe, but it was not an option. She mentioned how she attended a predominantly white school where her peers did not understand her. They thought she was stupid for skipping school to go ricing, hunting, or to take care of her grandma when she was sick. Her teachers would call on her to speak on behalf of her culture, like, "Tell us what Indians think of." So her family also struggled to trust the public school system, so she attended a private school until she was in 6th grade. After attending the powwow and speaking to this lady, I have realized the importance of cultural acceptance. All students should feel comfortable in the school setting and not feel forced to share their beliefs. School systems and teachers should advocate to teach the real history of America in all its grit and glory. It cannot be fixed, but it can be acknowledged with attempted reparations by befriending, defending, and just being a support. Teachers and peers should move past the colorblind approach because it indicates that you don't accept another culture or see the beautiful differences and contributions it has to offer. This was truly an eye-opening experience and one that will be useful when interacting with this population in the educational setting and out in the community.